So we're going to take a look at Bitcoin, right? And just going to give a little bit of an update around Bitcoin. Now, obviously, we track the move. We track the move from the CISD model, which we've got all the way down here, and the weekly buy program. Posted lots of YouTube videos on this, and you can see that our target has been met. Okay, which is the standard deviation target of negative 2.5 and negative 2. Right, so we've been tracking this target for a good few months now. Okay, ever since March to April, we began tracking this potential. Whether it's a major top, a local top, cycle top. We don't know yet. Okay, there's um there's a lot of different signals and confirmations I'd want to look for first before making that commitment to, okay, this is a cycle top now and we're going to put in a big move to the downside and roll over. Now there are a few signals, don't get me wrong, but there's also plenty of signals for upside. Okay, so there is one thing I'm favoring at the moment, and I'm favoring this to be a local top. Okay, a top that we will just consolidate around, which we are doing at the moment. Now, as I said, this target's been met. This was the target that we was after, is around 125k, and we had a little bit of a, sort of consolidation and pullback. You can see we do actually have a weekly SFP there too. Okay, and just remember, wicks do the damage, bodies tell the story. You can see this is previous month range. Okay, this is previous month low. This is previous month high over here. Okay, so this is July high, and what did this wick do? Okay, so this wick traded above, took previous month high, swept previous month high, and traded back inside and within this weekly candle range. Okay, which you can see here, this up close candle. So we're trading back within this range right now. Okay, and we're trading, of course, back within the previous month's range, as you can see. Now, a couple of things that I want to make a note of is we are actually holding equilibrium at the moment, which is this level. Okay, equilibrium is the 50% level. It's the 50% level of previous month range, and you can see we are consolidating. We're consolidating within the top half of previous month range, which is of course towards previous month high, and you can see we've had a couple of reactions already. Okay, from the equilibrium level, right? And again, we traded below, and we're getting a bit of a bounce back above at this moment of time. Now this wick, okay, this wick down was Friday. Okay, this was the manipulation of the previous week low. I believe this was previous week low. Let's have a look again. No, not previous week low. Previous week low is, of course, over here. This is previous week candle, which is here. But we swept this low, okay? And this low is internal range liquidity, right? We know it's internal range liquidity because we're trading within this weekly, okay? This weekly inefficiency that's here, okay? You see this weekly gap, okay? So we swept this low within this gap, okay? This inefficiency, okay? It's a bullish fair value gap, and we are now trading back above equilibrium. So there's a couple of signals there to say this move down has probably been fulfilled now, okay, because we've taken liquidity, and would want to see equilibrium level hold, and ideally by the close tonight, I would like to see, okay, I would like to see Bitcoin come and retrace back above 117,000, okay. So if Bitcoin gets a really strong bid back up to 117,000, then there's a very high chance that we're actually just going to reverse higher. Okay, that's a terrible arrow. And yeah, we're just going to reverse higher. Okay, and then you begin to target this high, which is previous week high. Okay. But at minimum, we want to see a close, of course, above equilibrium. Okay, we don't want to close below the equilibrium, right? If we close below the equilibrium and we've closed below previous week low, closed below equilibrium, then we're just putting greater risk at a potential rollover, and we're actually targeting potentially previous month low. Okay, and you can see that we have a level of demand which is right there. Okay, so that's a couple of things that I am watching for at the moment. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that statistically, okay, so a little bit of statistics right now, and seasonally, okay, so seasonal bias, right? September is historically one of the worst performing months for Bitcoin. Okay, you can see this is Bitcoin monthly returns. September is historically one of the worst months. Okay, you can just see from the averages, okay, and the median, September is pretty bad, right? And we still may close out a strong August, okay? We may still close out August green, right? If we want to close out August green, then what do we need to do? Well, we just need to reclaim monthly open, okay? And monthly open is around 115,000 by the looks of it. Let's get rid of previous week range there. Let's get rid of some of these drawings. So previous month open is just here, 15,760. Okay, so we can highlight this across. Okay, monthly open, and that's what we just want to see a reclaim. So we can, we can easily close August green by reclaiming previous week low, by reclaiming monthly open, which is at 15,700 by the weekly close tonight. Okay, so we may still close out a green August. Obviously, it is still a little bit too soon to say at the moment because, with certainty, you can see we are close to getting a bid up. This is obviously very manipulative, this move down here. So yeah, I would like to see a reclaim monthly open too. Okay, so reclaim monthly open, hold above equilibrium, and we see how next week plays out, and hopefully we trend back up again, and maybe a bit of a squeeze, for end of the month. Okay, but that still does not mitigate that September is historically one of the worst months for Bitcoin. Okay, so what usually follows September are some of the best performing months and the best performing quarter for Bitcoin, which is Q4, okay, which is October, November. So, you can see the overall gains that are here, the average and median, right? So, if you don't care about short-term volatility, ride September out. If you get any retracements lower on altcoins, might be good to position some more spot bids. Otherwise, just ride September out. Don't take on any further risk and wait for October, November. Okay, so you wait for this quarter and then you must have your exit plan. Okay, you begin to exit positions because what usually follows a great quarter in Q4 and just overall what follows December is usually a pretty bad January. Okay, pretty mediocre. January woes. We kind of did close this January out pretty strong in Bitcoin, but we didn't in altcoins. If anyone remembers, altcoins were really, really bad, and we pretty much posted a lot of this gain in January towards the end of the month. But as soon as December and Christmas had passed, it was January woes. So everyone was pretty miserable, not really trading, not really investing, none of this. Everyone's skint. No one's got much money because they've had a great Christmas, spent lots of money over Christmas. But obviously we did get a really great bid up in the January, followed by a really bad February. Okay, so yeah, I think it's worthwhile keeping in mind that there is a case here, statistics wise and seasonality, because even seasonally, risk assets never perform as great in September, right? On average, for risk markets, it's pretty poor. Okay, it's always better in Q4, right? So, um, that's just a couple of things that I'm looking at the moment. As I said, sweep on previous month high is, very manipulative. This is now a protected swing, which is over here. So if we want to see further upside, we of course want to trend back higher. Now, as I said, this is all holding at the moment and structure is holding, right? We only actually begin to lose structure if we begin to close below this low and now this low, okay? And then you enter weekly demand, which is over here, this down close candle. Okay, and then again, you only begin to lose structure. Major structural break is the loss of weekly demand and the loss of this low, or should I say these lows. Okay, then you begin to head lower. Okay, you begin to head to where the CISD model formed, this weekly gap here. Okay, which is 88 to 92K, right? And then obviously, you're talking major bear market and structural breaks when you begin to lose the likes of this low. Okay, so you got to keep in mind that a move down from the most recent all-time high to here is 30%. Okay, a major structural break below the low over here, that's a 60% move. Okay, to 40K, right? So when you think, okay, well, what's the next bear market possibly going to look like? Well, I highly doubt the bear market's just going to end here at a 30% drawdown. You're probably going to see a bit more of a structural break. Okay, it's going to be still like 50%. But of course, it depends on how high Bitcoin goes. And as I've said, this target has been met now. Of course, with CISD models, you do have higher targets. Okay, and I do have a higher target and a Q4 goal, and that Q4 goal is 153 to 145K, right? So if we stick to seasonal bias and statistics, there's a lot of different fundamental reasons, all right? Do we end Q4 over here for Bitcoin, right? If we do end Q4 over here for Bitcoin, then have your exit plan in place, right? Don't just think Bitcoin is going to ride higher than this and then have a little teeny weeny pullback and then go even higher, right? And like I always say, at all-time highs, you should be averaging out anyway, okay? And then whenever there's some significant break to the upside again, you average out, right? You keep averaging out. So anyone in Bitcoin should realistically be rotating out of Bitcoin and into altcoins. Okay. Same thing with ETH. ETH breaks into all-time high, you average a little bit out. Okay, you then rotate that capital into altcoins. Because as we know, what happens with altcoins move first to the downside, right, and last to the upside. So yeah, I just thought I would cover Bitcoin very quickly. As I said, this is holding right now, right? I don't like this weekly close still, but this is holding, right? But we want to see a monthly open reclaim. We want to see equilibrium being held, right? We've had the sweep of this low, very manipulative move. We are in a bullish fair value gap, okay? But then at the same, sort of other side of the coin, we have a weekly SFP, right? We've manipulated previous month high. This is now a protected swing, okay? This is an indication that the market was going to pull back as well. So is this the beginning of a larger reversal? Or is this the small pullback, consolidation, everything's being held, and we melt up to the upside, but then have another pullback in September, right? So I would love to see a melt up towards the end of August, a little bit into September, okay? And then we find some sort of bottom around mid-September, okay? And I'm going to say, I'd say between the 9th and the 22nd of September. I've mentioned the 9th of September before in some of my tweets. So do we just have this great melt up now, begin to pull back, find the bottom somewhere mid-September, might even be into October. It's probably a little bit more appropriate to say that before then we begin to melt up again. So I'm going to end that there. That's a little update on Bitcoin, and I'm going to do ETH next. Cheers.